A Lamborghini Countach is parked outside a Chicago ice cream shop, the dream car MJ DeMarco knew from posters and magazines. He half expects the owner to be some old guy, wrinkled, hairline receding into gray. Instead, a young guy walks out of the shop and heads straight for the Countach, an Iron Maiden shirt showing beneath a loose flannel. Nothing about him fits MJ's picture of a millionaire. Something in the kid breaks loose. He works up the nerve, walks over, and finally asks what the man does for a living. "I'm an inventor," the guy says. Then he's gone. That brief conversation planted a question DeMarco would spend years trying to answer. How does an ordinary person get rich early enough for it to actually matter? Here's what he eventually figured out. Almost everyone is already on one of three financial roads, whether they've chosen it or not. The sidewalk: spend what comes in, then spend a little more, and let debt cover the gap. The slow lane: get the degree, get the job, save a piece of every paycheck, invest it, and wait. Decades of maybe 8% a year in the market, and somewhere around retirement age, you might finally be free. And the fast lane: DeMarco insists this one really is get rich quick, just not what people assume that means. He draws a hard line between get rich quick and its con artist cousin, get rich easy. Get rich easy is the lie. The 10-day fortune, the program that promises money without the process. Get rich quick, done right, still runs through process, often years of it. It just compresses the timeline instead of stretching it across an entire working life. To show what that equation actually means, DeMarco reaches for a story, not from a boardroom, but from ancient Egypt. Two young men, nephews of a pharaoh, each ordered to build his own pyramid, alone. Finish it, and the pharaoh promises kingship and a lifetime of riches. Azur starts immediately, hauling the stones himself. Within months, the base is taking shape, and townspeople begin gathering to watch. A year in, his foundation is nearly finished. But the plot where Chuma's pyramid should be is still bare, not one stone laid. Azur finds him in a barn, working on some strange machine. He mocks him and walks away. Another year passes before Azur's foundation is finally solid enough to start the second level. That's where the real trouble begins. The stones only get heavier from here. He pushes his body harder, trains longer, works past what it can sustain. 3 years in, Chuma finally rolls his machine into the square, a tangle of wheels, levers, and ropes. On that same second level, it does in 2 days what took Azur 2 months, about 30 times faster. Azur refuses to stop. He keeps lifting, keeps training, certain that strength is still the answer. He dies of a heart attack on the 12th level, 2 levels short of finishing. Chuma completes his pyramid 8 years after starting, 3 years building the system, then 5 more years benefiting from what that system could do. The problem was never that Azur didn't work hard enough. His equation could only move faster by consuming more of the one thing he could never replace: himself. DeMarco had been living his own version of that equation, broke, still living with his mother in Chicago, working as a limousine driver, another job where his income still depended on his own time. Then a passenger asked him something simple. Did he know a good limo company in New York? He didn't, and finding a reliable one in a city you don't know isn't easy. That gap became the idea, a directory connecting travelers with limo services in cities they didn't know. He moved to Phoenix with next to nothing, taught himself the pieces he needed, and pushed the site hard with emails, cold calls, and mailed letters. Then something happened that looked like success, but wasn't. The site started bringing him web design work, companies willing to pay him to build sites for them. The checks were real, but so was the catch. The moment he stopped building sites, the income stopped too. He'd escaped one job just to build himself another. Meanwhile, the directory itself was quietly collecting a growing stream of customer inquiries, so he changed the model. Instead of selling ad space, he started charging companies for the actual leads he sent them. Now the business was tied to something customers actually valued: And here's the shift that mattered. The directory could now serve far more customers without DeMarco putting in a separate hour of work for every single one. His income was no longer capped by how many websites he could personally build in a day. That's leverage, not as a parable, but as an actual business. DeMarco boils that shift into a formula. Wealth equals net profit, plus the value of the asset producing it, and net profit is just units sold, multiplied by profit per unit. Change those variables, and your ceiling is no longer the number of hours in your day. Except starting a company doesn't automatically buy you out of the equation. His own web design detour just proved that. So how do you tell a real Fastlane business apart from another job wearing a nicer title? DeMarco built a 5-part test for exactly that. The 5 Fastlane Commandments. Need, solving something people already want solved, not just something you personally love doing. Entry, hard enough to build that competitors can't copy it by filling out a form in an afternoon. Control, you own the pricing, the brand, the decisions, not renting your business from someone else's rulebook. Scale, able to reach far more people than you could ever personally serve. And time, running without your hours chained to every single transaction. 5 questions, asked before you spend years finding out the hard way. Now, here's where the story could have ended, and where DeMarco almost lets you think it did. In 2000, during the dot-com boom, he sold the company for about $1.2 million. Young guy, huge check, story over. Except it wasn't. Taxes, worthless stock options, bad investments, and his own mistakes cut that fortune down fast, to less than $300,000. Meanwhile, the company that bought his site started running it into the ground. So he bought it back, for about $250,000, financed through the business itself. This time, he expanded the customer base, cut expenses, and streamlined the operation, until the business depended less and less on his time, and the income kept climbing instead. In 2007, he sold it again, this time for a multi-million-dollar deal. The visible moment was always the sale, the check, the young guy who made it, but the sale was never the actual strategy. The asset underneath it was built, sold, bought back, rebuilt, and eventually sold again. That's the difference between fast wealth and lucky wealth, and it's the whole reason the process matters more than the event. So after all the equations, the pyramids, and the millions, DeMarco's own definition of wealth isn't a number at all. He breaks it into 3 things: family, meaning your relationships; fitness, meaning your health; and freedom, meaning your ability to actually choose your own days. And in his accounting, money does one thing especially well. It can buy freedom. Freedom helps protect the other 2. Which changes what that Lamborghini was all the way back at the start. It was never really the destination. It was evidence that there might be a different equation available to someone who wasn't famous, gifted, or born into money. The Millionaire Fastlane goes a lot deeper into how that equation actually gets built, and it's worth grabbing a copy for yourself. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.